My name is Pedro Noguera. I'm a professor of education at New York University. I'm a sociologist, and I've been studying education and working with schools for the last 25 or so years throughout the country and also in different parts of the world. The issue of diversity and how it impacts our schools and our society is something that I think a lot about and written a lot about over the years. Schools have often been a meeting place for different cultures, and schools have often been the place that we turn to in our society to help our society become a more integrated place and to teach children how to become citizens and to become acculturated to this society. What we haven't always appreciated is the fact that their cultures are also a resource, that the diversity has always been a source of strength for this country, and that our children are actually better off, for example, if they learn to speak more than one language. And so that rather than trying to eradicate their language and eradicate cultural difference, I would think many schools would be better off if they figured out how to embrace those differences so that kids could be better positioned to participate in a world where increasingly the borders are not as important as they once were. That's our advantage as a country. Our diversity is our strength because in this country we have people from every country in the world. And to the degree that we're able to draw on the strengths of our students and their cultures, their languages, our country's better positioned. Our students are also better off if they're able to use their language and their culture as a resource to them in life. Now, this might seem obvious, but I would say in many schools, students, particularly immigrant students, often feel as though their cultural difference is a deficit and is something that's held against them. And learning English is the primary task that they're given. And while learning English is obviously important if they can succeed in society, many of these kids would also be better off if they could speak more than one language and retain the language that they came with. And so a lot of what we've got to do is to start thinking differently about culture. Culture is a resource for children, and our children who are acculturating to this society often experience stress as they do, because in many cases they are becoming estranged from their families as they become Americans, and as that occurs they can often become more distant and in some cases more likely to get into trouble because they find themselves in a situation where they are neither really a part of that culture that they were brought into by their parents, nor are they fully American. And in that kind of hybrid state, we often find that kids can get lost and sometimes also be drawn to gangs, because gangs provide social support, and immigrant kids in many communities are more likely to be in gangs, but also more likely to drop out of school. And again, because they're not able to see the relevance of education, but also because there's great pressure on them to work. And so for all these reasons, we need to create schools that are affirming our differences, that are where our kids feel valued. A central question of all adolescence is, who am I? What does it mean to be who am I? And we have to help kids to figure that out and helping them to become grounded in an understanding of their heritage, their culture, but also to understand what kind of world we're entering. We're entering a world where increasingly children will be rewarded if they have the ability to navigate multiple cultures. And there is a real advantage to being multilingual. And I think those are all things that we need to ensure are part of how we think about education and how we think about the curriculum and think about our schools. We've known for a long time that teacher expectations are very powerful in influencing student outcomes and student behavior. And it's important to know that it's not simply a matter of just raising expectations, and as in raising the bar, but also important to understand what are the needs kids bring, what are the challenges they face outside of school, what are the talents they bring that need to be developed and cultivated. How do children learn when they're not with us? What engages them? What excites them? What motivates them? The more you know about your children, the better you'll have a chance of being able to serve them well. But it's very important that we not only see their problems, that we not only see them through the deficits, because if you only see the problems, you don't see the strengths. And what we now know in education is that if you can build on a child's strengths, you're in a much better position to help develop their confidence and their competence. And children who are confident and competent are more likely to become resilient. more likely to persist when things get hard, and to not give up if they fall down. And so all of that comes from a strengths-based approach to working with children. Too often we locate problems within children, and we think our job is to try to eradicate their culture, eradicate the influences of the neighborhood and the parents. And what we often overlook when we take that approach is that kids are also coming with strengths that come from their neighborhoods, that come from their families. And we need to try to find ways to learn more about those so that schools can become a partner with communities, a partner with families, and so that children don't think that they have to choose between their culture, their family, their neighborhood, and their education. When kids think they have to make that choice, that success is premised on leaving their neighborhood and leaving their family, some kids will choose not to leave. Some kids will choose to stay because they love their family and they love their community. And even if the educators may not think as much of those families and communities, the children still feel strong ties and attachment to them. And so that's the reason why it's very important that education be grounded in community and provide kids with skills so that they can critically think about what's going on in their community, but at the same time also think about, how do I become an asset to my community? How do I become a leader in my community so I can contribute to solving some of the problems that my neighbors and my family members face? And I think that kind of education is empowering. That's the kind of education that results in cultivating leadership within communities and ultimately results in kids who are able to give back in meaningful ways to the neighborhoods that they come from.